What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Tuesday, December 27th, 2016, getting into the week here. Had Boxing Day off yesterday. I hope you all had a great Christmas. I hope you're all having a happy Hanukkah. And we just lost our connection to RBN. I haven't had this much fun since, okay, and try again. Okay. Okay, okay, I don't know what's going on here. Okay, well, I'm just going to keep talking here for the BAM user audience while we figure out what happened. But apparently they lost our Skype connection from the RBN side. Reminds me, years ago, I actually worked for this TV station, KBSA, UHF station channel 46, transmitters on Mount Wilson. And I remember one broadcast day we cranked up in the morning and we were on the air for exactly 2 minutes, and we get a call from Mount Wilson that our transmitter is on. There we go. Our transmitter's on fire. Okay, so we're back here on the air. There we go. All right, so it's Tuesday, December 27th, 2016, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble, ready to answer the phones when you call on in. And let me just get on down here. So we've got... there we are. Okay, now, a lot of things going on here today. Right now, Obama and Japan's Prime Minister Abe are down here at the bottom of the hill at the Arizona Memorial. This is apparently the first official visit by a Japanese head of state since the end of World War II, so they're down there making nice. They actually closed down most of that whole Pearl Harbor, Ford Island area, the Missouri, the Beaufort, and so forth. But you can see them from up here with a telescope. So they're down there doing that, and then Abe's going to go home, and Obama's going to complete his vacation. Let's go to a phone call. Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, before I want to say anything, I want to say rest in peace, John, and condolences to his family. Yeah,
absolutely. There was a huge outpouring of condolence emails. I didn't forward them all to the family because there were so many. I only forwarded one or two select ones, including from the gentleman who did the little homage to John, which is on the main page of whatreallyhappened.com.
Mike, with this plane crash in Russia, I don't believe in coincidences. I think there is you can tell, an orchestrated attack against Russia. Now, I know the plane landed in Sochi, but what's the chances of somebody putting something in the fuel? Oh, I mean, it's just too much of a coincidence, all these different events in this time period. You know what I mean?
Well, I understand that, but if somebody was trying to score points against Russia, this one is a PR disaster because they killed quite a few of the members of Russia's Army Choir, which is a world-class, or was a world-class choir that won all kinds of international acclaim, and everybody is now feeling very sorry and sympathetic for Russia on this. It could be. I mean, we know that the war party in the United States is desperate to start a shooting war with Russia or China before Trump can take office next month because Trump has already indicated wants to go back to being friends with Putin. Putin is saying he's on board with that. Same thing with China. And so they're really desperate to get these wars going, especially as it becomes more and more obvious they've lost in Syria. And it's already being described as the biggest military setback for the United States in 15 years. Personally, I think it's the biggest defeat since all the way back in Vietnam. And they're trying to get this agenda back on track to force the U.S. economic domination back onto the world.
And then switching, like you said, to Japan, Abe is just another puppet, and so is the mayor of Okinawa, who rescinded that where they would give back the land, the 10,000 acres?
They were trying. It was a question of the U.S. base in Okinawa wants to relocate to where they're going to have more land for longer runways, and Okinawa was resisting that. And then all of a sudden, I guess somebody made a phone call or somebody left a dead horse's head in his bed. But all of a sudden, that is now no longer operant, and so yeah, he got his chain pulled on that one.
Yeah, it's just you see how people realize either you get paid off or you get blackmailed. That's the two.
Or threatened. You know,
yeah.
Plata y plomo.
The empire of the West. Yeah, it's the empire of the West, Mike. Yeah, we basically become Rome, Soviet Union, British Empire. That bad.
And it's always worth remembering that all of those empires have since collapsed. Rome is gone. The Soviet Union's gone. Britain is just a thin shell of its former glory, and that's where the United States is headed as well, into the dustbin of history. We're going to take a moment here to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are just rejoining our network. We're back here from our Christmas vacation, taking phone calls and talking about the news.
And I just want to tell Mike, I hope you had a good Christmas, and I hope you have a very good New Year.
Well, thank you very much. We had a really good Christmas. Claire's choir did a phenomenal job at the Christmas Eve services. Unfortunately, everybody in the congregation was sick and coughing and sneezing, and now the pastor's down with it, and I'm under the weather myself today, but we're pulling through. But the choir just did an amazing job, and it looks like it's going to be a raucous New Year. We're hearing people play with their illegal fireworks all the time, and so it's going to be an interesting time. Let's switch over to Bob in Las Vegas. Aloha, Bob. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, Mike, aloha, Mike. I hope your Christmas went well. I hope Santa was good to you.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, wasn't particularly generous, but it's not been a generous year.
Okay, well,
Claire did much better than I did.
That's great. I'd like to agree with Dustin from my home state of New Jersey that I believe the timing is very suspicious of this Tu-154 crash. You look at what happened to France when Hollande started making friendly gestures towards Russia. In fact, he stopped in Russia on his way back from Kazakhstan. This was before all those terror attacks in France, and then those attacks occurred. So I think and even the Saker, Vineyard of the Saker, this man's a security expert. He says too he believes terrorism from one of these security services, Western security services, is probably the most logical explanation. So we'll see.
Well, there's a video circulating around the net purporting to show the explosion of the aircraft in midair, and there's a report now that the aircraft had gone off course before it vanished from radar. In fact, it had almost completely turned around. Still waiting for confirmation on that one. But again, we know the U.S. is trying to provoke Russia into doing something, and the rest of it could just be spoiled brat behavior. It could be Hillary Clinton, upset because she thinks Putin is responsible for her loss of the White House, and we know how many airplanes fell out of the sky surrounding the Clintons over the years, including Ron Brown.
I just don't know how these people, if they were behind this, it just speaks to their power. How could they pull this off? It happened I don't know if it was a military airport. It stopped in Sochi airport. It originated at a military airport outside of Moscow. So the Sochi airport, it might have been easier to infiltrate and to get through their security. But this is the case. These people are crazy. They're still at it in Syria. They haven't given up. Even Russia, the foreign ministry announced today that the weapons are continuing to flow to the quote unquote moderates, and they will inevitably end up in the hands of the jihadists, of the extremists.
Of course.
So they haven't given up, Mike. They haven't given up on this Syria gambit. Yes, hopefully when Trump comes in, he'll stop these weapons, the weapons flow, but they're going to continue. They're going to send as many weapons to Syria. They're going to bring in as many refugees into this country until the last day, until January 20th when Trump is sworn in.
Yeah, we knew this was going to be a rough month. There's no question about it. and everybody's trying to preserve and promote their agenda before Trump can yank the plug on it. And we have that ludicrous image of Barack Obama, who has used more executive orders than any other president in U.S. history, demanding Donald Trump refrain from using executive orders. Because he doesn't want Trump undoing all of Obama's executive orders, which a president can do.
Of course not. Of course not. Mike, I don't know if you heard about that professor or associate professor, what he tweeted from Drexel University about white genocide. That was his Christmas wish.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is how crazy this country's become, where a university professor or associate professor can feel comfortable to openly state that he wants to see white people be the victims of genocide. So I made a point. I called the university. We had some family and some friends who went there. And unfortunately, because of the holiday, I couldn't reach anybody. But I sent an email. I posted something on their Facebook page. The people, especially the white people out there, like me, who are very offended, or anybody, any civilized person needs to let these people know, because these liberals, these haters, they hate us white people, but they love our money. So the only way we can make them buckle and comply, and this applies to these sanctuary cities as well. We've got to flex our economic muscle, and that means individuals sending emails or calling these companies or universities, or in the case of Trump, threatening to withhold funds from these cities. Then they'll comply. If you use the economic weapon, they'll comply.
Well, the good news is apparently a lot of people did complain to Drexel, and the school administration has chastised this individual to the point where he's clarified that what he meant to say was that the white genocide that took place in Haiti, that he thought that was a good thing. But again, look at the hypocrisy. If somebody tweeted out in favor of a black genocide, how would the corporate media result? If they tweeted out genocide of the Hispanics, how would the corporate media respond? If they tweeted out genocide of the Jews, you know everybody would go ballistic. But for some reason, you can talk about genocide of the whites, and everybody's saying, yeah, I'm on board with that. That's cool. Let's do that. And you need to remember, you don't cure racism by being racist in reverse. It just doesn't work. And yeah, right now the white population is being targeted by the liberals because we represent all the things they want to be and can't be. And we're actually an artifact of that whole victimhood culture, because liberals get their support base by going on out to women, Hispanics, blacks, gays, whatever, and saying, you would be rich and successful if it wasn't for those white straight males, and if you vote for me and give me your money, I will reverse things. I mean, Hillary Clinton campaigned on that this entire year. And so now we have a generation of blacks and Hispanics and women and gays who are absolutely convinced that they would be at the top of the ladder of success if it wasn't for the white males. And we're seeing this racist attitude start to build. And again, Hitler did exactly the same thing in Germany, only in his case it was the Jews. Like they were doing it with the Muslims here in the U.S. You set up a scapegoat group, a target, and you blame all the problems on them to build your political support. And right now it's white people. And, you know, it's racism in reverse, but it's still racism.
Well, chastisement is not enough with respect to this professor. I let it be known to them, and I'm going to call them again next week and say, unless this piece of garbage is forthwith terminated, they will never see another penny from me, other members of my family, and I will let's put the word out to those who haven't heard of this story, never to give Drexel University another penny.
Yeah, that's absolutely the way to do that right now.
They'll change their tune. They'll change their tune after that.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was absolutely horrendous for this guy to put that out there. And again, put it in a different context. What if he'd called for black genocide or a genocide against the gays? How would the corporate media have responded? And why isn't the corporate media responding when he talks about white genocide?
Yeah. He already would have been fired if he referenced another group.
Absolutely. He would have been gone, loss of tenure, everything. But, you know, apparently it's open season on the white people.
Right, open season on the white people, exactly. All right, well, thank you, Mike. Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch to Ted somewhere in the Midwest. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, good afternoon, Michael. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Hey, I wanted to call in. I was fairly close acquaintances with John from Barbados, and I just wanted to say that we all miss him, and I know for a fact, Michael, that he absolutely adored you and your broadcast. But I was on a Skype call last night with a few close friends of his, and we were talking, and we wanted to put out a message to all the friends of John around the world. We don't necessarily know how many there were, but we're doing a memorial broadcast for him in the near future. And if your friends have any stories you'd like to share, we most certainly like to befriend you and have you participate in the memorial show. My email is strangerinmyownland@yahoo.com.
Okay, a stranger. Hang on, a stranger in my own land at yahoo.com.
Correct.
Okay.
Or if Skype is easier for you, it's Eddie Money 2, the number 2 at the end.
Okay, and when are you planning this broadcast?
Well, once we gather and accumulate all the audio clips that we have of him, we're thinking about in the next week.
Okay.
So we want to do it really soon, and we'd love to have all the friends of John around the world befriend us and join us for one last send-off.
Okay, well, when you say befriend us, that implies you've got like a Facebook or a Scene Life page?
That I do. You can catch me at Ted Midward on Scene Life, Facebook, and Twitter. And myself and a few other Skype friends who had Skype calls with John a couple times a week, a couple times a month, we're going to be gathering up everything we can, archiving it on YouTube. I want to give a shout-out to Freedom MV1 on YouTube. He's already gone through for the month of December, Mike, and archived all the clips with John's call-ins thus far. So we appreciate that. And it's very simple. We just want to make sure that the world has not heard the last of John. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. I know others are also doing these memoriam broadcasts. There's one on the front page of what really happened. And, yeah, I'm already missing him. The suddenness of his passing which was a bit of a shock. And we are all going to miss him. So one more time, give everybody your Scene Life address so they know where to connect with you and find out more.
Sure. You can catch me on Twitter, Facebook, Scene Life, under the name Ted Midward, M-I-D-W-A-R-D.
Okay, M-I-D-W-A-R-D. I'm repeating it because we've got a bad phone connection.
Okay. Yes, Midward.
Okay.
And it's also a stranger in my own land at Yahoo. And
okay, are you still there?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we're done here. Thank you very much for the information, and I hope a lot of people are going to make a point of going on over there so that we remember John and how important he was. And by the way, to judge by the volume of mail I got over here, he really did have quite a huge following around the globe. All right, so Ted, we're going to let you go. Good luck with your broadcasting program, and drop me an email when there's actually a schedule for this to happen, and I'll be sure and do an on-air shout-out, okay?
Absolutely. God bless, Michael. Thank you much.
Thank you very much. We're going to let you go and do some news here now. Barack Obama has signed the Countering Disinformation and Propaganda Act into law, and House Resolution 5181. Okay, we're going to take a break for commercials. We'll be back with more about the war between the real media and the really real media after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And getting into the topic of the war between the corporate media and the truth. And the other side is closing ranks and getting ready to uncork on us because how dare we spoil this wonderful little system of lying to the public and being believed and using those lies to send us off to war, to steal our money, and so forth and so on. So Obama has now signed the Countering Disinformation and Propaganda Act into law, House Resolution 5181, to basically create what amounts to an Orwellian Ministry of Truth. And it's phrased as countering foreign disinformation and manipulation, but we already know from the Washington Post that anybody in this country who links to Russia today is considered an arm of Russian propaganda. Now, at some point, there's going to be a fight on this all the way to the Supreme Court, and we're all going to have to chip in for the legal fees. Because this is a First Amendment issue. Freedom of speech. And if the corporate media can rely on the First Amendment to protect themselves when they lie, then that same First Amendment protects the independent media when we tell the truth. And that's really what it's all about. They may call themselves the real media and us the fake media, but what it is the American people fighting against U.S. government propaganda, not Russian propaganda. And there's going to be a test case that's going to go all the way to the Supreme Court here. Forbes apparently decided they were going to run a hit piece on naturalnews.com, which is an alternative health website which has been at the forefront of the vaccine awareness issue. And I just found out from some people that articles that I post about research papers showing there is a link between vaccines and autism are now being blocked by Facebook, which is why I'm over on Scene Life now, and I urge you all to just cancel your Facebook memberships and go over to Scene Life, because if Facebook, and for that matter Google, want to act like the filtered corporate media, then we should give them the audience of the filtered corporate media. And by the way, CNN just set an all-time record low on ratings. More people are watching the Gardening Channel and Cartoon Network than are watching CNN. And why it's made a mandatory part of our cable package, I don't know. I could live without it. I absolutely could live without it. Now, Donald Trump is at odds with NBC because he posted a comment about the U.S. nuclear program, and this was Donald Trump's original tweet. The United States must greatly strengthen and expand its nuclear capability until such time as the world comes to its senses regarding nukes. When NBC reported on this tweet, they left off that tail part. And they just said, Donald Trump says the United States must greatly strengthen and expand its nuclear capability. And Donald Trump has gone public chastising them for this edit, which clearly changes the meaning of what he was saying. The corporate media has not learned their lesson from the debacle of 2016. But again, as I mentioned before, they're trapped by their business model. They make their money lying to you. That's why they get those fat paychecks. Nobody has to pay somebody huge amounts of money to tell you the truth. You can have the truth for free. You can find the truth for yourself if you want to do the work. Those people in the corporate media are paid huge amounts of money to be very convincing liars, like Brian Williams, who even though he was caught lying is still paid huge amounts of money to go on TV and lie to you again. The corporate media cannot change its business model without going out of business. And that's the corner they find themselves in, and it's a corner of their own making. Now, already people are starting to fight back against all this censorship. People are getting off of Facebook, they're dropping Google, they're going over to Yandex and Scene Life and all these other new startup social media companies that are promising no censorship. Because if Google and Facebook want to behave just like the filtered corporate media, they're going to wind up with exactly the same audience. Virtually none. All right, we got to take a break for more commercials. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're talking about the war between U.S. government propagandists and those of us who know the truth and feel that you, our fellow American citizens, have a right to the truth. because nowhere in the Constitution is the government allowed to lie to you. And when they lie to you about Saddam's weapons of mass destruction, about Assad's sarin gas, about human-caused global warming, about torpedoes in the Gulf of Tonkin, the government is acting illegally and unconstitutionally and becomes illegitimate. And we need to have a zero-tolerance policy. Now, people are already fighting back. There are these new startup social media companies coming online, VK, Diaspora, Scene Life, Gab, that promise a censorship-free environment. Yandex, the search engine, is not censoring what it's finding, and you need to give them your business. Stop using Google. Stop using Facebook. Stop using these corporations that are clearly on board with U.S. government propagandists to try and control your mind. Now, other people are already looking to find ways to get around all the little great wall of silicon or the silicon curtain that is going on up. Open Whisper Systems, which created and maintains Signal, a communications app, has added a feature that allows it to sidestep censorship in Egypt and the United Arab Emirates by routing its packets through other servers, sort of a miniature version of Tor. Now, Trey Gowdy is out there saying if you want to know who's doing the fake news, it's that corporate media. They're the ones who lied to you about Saddam's nukes, human-caused global warming. Hillary will win in a landslide. And let's not forget last Friday, where they were out there saying ISIS has targeted churches in all 50 states over the weekend. There's going to be blood. Did it happen? Of course not. It's just the corporate media doing the booga booga booga, keep you scared. Now, WikiLeaks has denied 5 times that Russia was the source for the DNC email leaks. 5 times. At one point implied it was Seth Rich, but all 5 times has said it's an internal leak. The former ambassador to Great Britain, who was in on the handing off of this information, is saying it's an inside leak. The corporate media still refuses to report it. The corporate media is still out there saying Russia, 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 and they have the nerve to say that we're the fake news. Right out of George Orwell. And even more Orwellian, George Washington University has now removed the requirement for U.S. history from required courses. If you go to George Washington University, and it only costs you $68,000 a year, you are not required to study U.S. history. They don't want you going back and looking very carefully at it in the light of recent embarrassments and revelations and cover-ups. No, it's just better if we don't let them look at all. Here, we're going to replace required courses with, how to hate white people and how to believe in human-caused global warming. That's all you really need for only $68,000 a year for a reasonable interest fee. Now, it's come on out over the weekend. Actually, it came out last week, but we're going to hit it again. Remember all those faithless electors in the Electoral College who said we're out there to save the country from Donald Trump and we're going to vote our conscience. And as it turned out, Hillary had more faithless electors than any other candidate in history. It turns out that the Stop Trump electors were in contact with the Clinton campaign. That's collusion. It's conspiracy to commit election fraud. Now, Huffington Post is out there, once again, they're in denial about what happened. And Huffington Post is out there with this idea, did James Comey cost Hillary Clinton the election? We asked the late deciding voters, and they're out there just saying, it was all Comey's fault. It was Russia's fault. It was the fault of the independent media. And you need to remember something. Anytime somebody comes on up and says, James Comey cost Hillary Clinton the election, you need to remember something. If Hillary Clinton and her people had been playing by the rules and complied with the law, there wouldn't have been an FBI investigation in the first place. But Hillary seems to have this attitude that it's okay for her to break the law. And the bad people are the ones who are standing out there saying that you should be obeying the law and that you committed crimes. Oh, they're the bad people. I'm Empress Hillary the First. I can do no wrong. I'm of the nobility. I'm above the law. It's all, these are the troublemakers who are investigating and spying and peeking here. Now, there's a very troubling article coming out of TruePundit.com. And they are reporting that according to sources in the Justice Department, Hillary and Bill Clinton are in secret negotiations with the Obama White House for a blanket pardon for both Clintons. Now, Hillary has not been formally charged with a crime. Technically, under the law, you have to be convicted of a crime before you can apply for or receive a pardon. That's not going to stop them. They're going to go on back to Gerald Ford's preemptive pardoning of Richard Nixon for Watergate, because they did not want the real secrets behind Watergate to be made public. It would bring the entire government down, and the same thing applies here to the king and queen of CIA cocaine. But if they come out with this little pardon, and they're not going to be able to keep it secret, it's going to be made public the first time Trey Gowdy or Jeff Sessions comes on out and says, we're going to file charges. They're going to say, well, no, Hillary's got a blanket pardon. And that right there is an admission she committed crimes. A pardon is a confession that major crimes were committed. And they don't think you should know what was being done by your, in theory, elected leaders with your money and the lives of your children. Now, Obama is out there trying to polish his legacy, and he's frankly saying some really bizarre things just in the hope that that's what everybody will write down in the history books. Oh, yes, in his closing days, Obama said that he walked on water, and that will be what goes in the history book. Josh Earnest is out there belaboring this idea to the press corps, who will write the history books, that they haven't acknowledged Obama as being the most transparent president in history. Really? Most transparent president? Remember how hard it was to dig out what was going on behind the scenes in Obamacare? We still don't know exactly what was going on with the consulate in Benghazi. They're still trying to keep the lid on the arming of these terrorists over in Syria. Most transparent? Is this guy on drugs? And if so, why isn't he sharing them? Now, as I mentioned before, things in Syria are not going very well for the United States government. Article coming out of offguardian.org. The liberation of Aleppo is the most serious setback for the U.S. in 15 years. And they're mentioning that in the context of this ongoing program of wars of aggression to take over all of the resource-rich areas in the Middle East to shackle them to the U.S. dollar. And that's been going on for 15 years. But I think in a wider scope, Syria is the United States' biggest military defeat since Vietnam. And it's hard to know what's going on over there, except that Obama is continuing to spend your tax money to shower weapons all over these terrorists in Syria, including man-pad missiles. Now, cleaning up Aleppo, the Syrian government and the Russian Ministry of Defense are uncovering mass graves containing civilians who have been subjected to brutal torture. Some of the corpses were found missing important parts of their body. Most had been executed with a gunshot to the head. These are war crimes being carried out by the people supported and armed by the Obama administration. Most transparent president in history. My astrolabe. All right, let's take a phone call here. Alex in Florida, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Not much, Michael. I don't believe Obama's ratings right now. They say he has like a 55% approval rating. I think that's fake news.
No kidding. No kidding. And then he comes on out and says, if I could have run for a third term, I would have won. And everybody's laughing at him for that.
Yeah, the more and more I look at it, I don't think he won the last election.
That's entirely possible. It's hard to point to any election in recent memory and be able to say with a certainty that this was an honest, fair, and accurate election. It's an epidemic problem. It goes all the way back to Bill Clinton's term in office. There was a book written by the Collier brothers, the people who invented the Hawaiian Tropic Tan line of products. And after they made their money, they got into politics and they saw what it was really like. And they wrote a book called Vote Scam, which is still available online. And it was going on all the way back then. Janet Reno was up to her neck in the election theft. And that's why I'm saying once Trump is in the White House and we have a sympathetic president on the issue of honest elections, the next 2 years are going to be about demanding a complete top-down overhaul of our entire election system so that we, the people, know it's honest, fair, and accurate. And that means no more electronic counting machines, no more tabulation centers. We're going to crowdsource the counting. We're going to have voter ID laws. We're going to have little jars of blue dye to dip your finger in so that people know you voted once. I've laid it all out in an article, how this can be done. And I'm not saying it's 100% foolproof, but it's going to make election fraud very hard to carry out and almost impossible to conceal, as opposed to our current system, which is designed to facilitate election fraud and conceal it from the American people.
That's right. It's like Carlin said, like George Carlin says, it's an illusion that they give us, so we think that our voice or our vote count.
That's exactly right. We live in the world of illusion. But again, the good news was all the election fraud in the world cannot reverse a landslide, and that's why Brexit won. That's why Donald Trump is the next president of the United States of America.
Sure is good times. Now, you think that Obama will pardon Clinton and some of the officials of their of her campaign and FBI and
if he wants to, if he wants that on his legacy, because he's not going to keep it secret. We'll make a big deal of it out here in the independent media. Obama complicit with the crimes of the Clintons. He gave them a pardon to cover it all up, and that will be his taint going forward with his legacy. Nobody's going to be able to think about Barack Obama in the future without being reminded that he pardoned the Clintons for all of their crimes.
Do you think he's going to pardon them?
I don't know, but if he does, we're going to stain him with it.
But if he doesn't, I would think that, like Trey Gowdy, may bring up charges against the Clintons.
I think that Trey Gowdy should bring charges against the Clintons. We cannot tolerate a political class that sees themselves as above the law. We need to make an example of the Clintons as a deterrent to future generations of politicians. We need to send a message to everybody out in this country who's aspiring to a political life that this kind of behavior will not be tolerated by the American people. No CIA drug running, no money laundering, no dead bodies in suburban Washington, D.C. parks, no small airplanes falling out of the sky, no unbridled corruption masquerading as a charitable foundation. We need to set an example for future generations. If we don't, this country is going to truly be lost.
Yes, I believe that. I saw an interview with Noam Chomsky on YouTube the other day, where he was basically saying the FBI and the CIA are just departments of the executive branch that cover up their crimes and their misdeeds.
Well, certainly the FBI, technically the CIA is supposed to be external and the FBI is supposed to be internal. I know that they blur the lines a lot. But that was my experience 22 years ago. When I stumbled accidentally, I wasn't looking for this thing. I didn't get up one morning and say, I think I'm going to self-destruct my promising film career by getting involved in the murder of a Washington, D.C. lawyer. But when I accidentally stumbled on the evidence that Vincent Foster had been murdered and there was a cover-up going on, the FBI destroyed my career just as thoroughly as they did Gene Seberg back in the 1960s, all part of Operation COINTELPRO. So, yeah, that's what the FBI is really like. The cover-ups, getting rid of the dead bodies. They're not the swell bunch of Joes that TV shows and movies like to show you. In fact, the FBI has a very long history of keeping a close watch on film and TV production so that they're always presented in a very positive light. J. Edgar Hoover would literally go out to Hollywood and stand on the sound stages of movies about the FBI and tell the director how to direct the movie. That's how manic he was about this.
Well, I'll tell you what, if Obama does not pardon the Clintons, then it's going to be a big issue with Trump supporters that he better do something to prosecute them.
Absolutely.
I know I'm going to be very upset if they don't proceed with prosecutions.
I'm going to be very upset. All I'm asking for is one felony conviction, okay? Because one felony conviction of Hillary Clinton, and she will not be able to run again in 2020.
Yeah, I think Hillary Clinton's going to be dead before 2020 gets here, but you never know. They may prop her
Well,
up.
remember, only the good die young.
You got that right. Only old grass never dies. It never does. It's the weeds. They never die away.
Yeah.
The freaking will take over. So we need to definitely stay on it and hope that we can do something. And I will tell you, if there's one thing that has been brought to the light, which was kind of shocking to me, is that the Democratic Party is very war-mongering, war-prone. I mean, they're just like the Bushes.
Well, they're all looking at this idea that unless the U.S. can reassert hegemonic domination over the world's economy, the U.S. economy is going to collapse. There's nothing left to hold it up. No manufacturing. Nobody wants our GMO. Got to let you go. Take a break for commercials. Back with more phone calls after these few words. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And before we go back to the phones, I'm going to fit some news in here. Russia has responded to Obama's easing of restrictions on weapons being sent to the U.S.-backed terrorists in Syria, which includes deliveries of shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles, which are a direct threat to Syrian and Russian aircraft. And according to Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova, basically this is being seen by Moscow as a hostile act. Remember what I said before. The war hawks want to find some way to provoke Russia. And so I think we're going to see attempts to shoot down Russian aircraft. Now, what Putin will probably do, because he's smart, is he'll tell everybody in Russia, just stop where you are and wait until January 20th, not even give them an opportunity to shoot the plane down here. Meanwhile, Turkey's President Erdogan says he's about to release confirmed evidence with pictures, photos, and videos proving the United States is supporting ISIS. Now, we've all been told ISIS is our enemy in the war on terror, and that means the U.S. government, in providing aid and comfort to an enemy in time of war, is technically guilty of treason, which is punishable by a long drop and a short stop. Let's grab some more phone calls. Kyle in Pennsylvania. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Well, I want to speak on the incredible Ministry of Truth bill that Obama has passed.
Yep.
My thought is, Tao Tsung, or Tsung Soo, whatever his name is, don't ever interrupt an enemy when he's making a tactical mistake.
Yes.
And that's what these people are doing. They've already shown, Twitter's stock value has gone from $45 a share down to $8 a share once they started censoring other, voices that don't apply with their CEO, Jack DeVries. So let them do it. Let them do it. Because they're only hurting themselves. They are just doubling down on the very poor policies that have gotten them to where they are today. They're doubling down on the policies that put Trump into office.
Well, it's kind of interesting here. Facebook stock is also heading downward. We may actually see the U.S. government start to subsidize Facebook and Twitter and even Google at taxpayer expense. And then basically say, you will go here. You will look at these people. You won't use these other social media. You won't go and use Yandex. But again, all of this comes down to that First Amendment right to freedom of speech. And the uphill battle that they're fighting is, it's provable the corporate media has been lying to the American people on an epic scale. And that's why they're afraid of an open debate. Who's real and who's fake? Well, I don't know. Who was out there screaming about Saddam's weapons of mass destruction? Who was out there screaming that Donald Trump didn't stand a chance in this election? Who was out there with torpedoes in the Gulf of Tonkin, Spanish mine in Havana Harbor, no weapons on the Lusitania, Pearl Harbor a surprise, human-caused global warming, vaccines are safe, GMOs are safe? Everybody knows who the fake media is.
You're already seeing this idea of government subsidy for these online Twitters, Facebooks, Google, because they have their CEOs out there saying that Twitter, Facebook, and Google need to be seen as a utility and not as a private service.
Yeah, well, we're still not going to use them. Got to let you go. Got to take a break for station identification. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. The lines are full. But before I take more phone calls, I need to get into some of this important news here. Now, the UN Security Council voted through a resolution declaring Israel's illegal settlements on Palestinian land to be illegal. The United States abstained from the vote, but did not exercise their veto, and so the resolution passed. And looking at the video from the Security Council, the entire room erupted into applause and cheering. And you didn't see that on America's corporate media, did you? Well, Netanyahu is throwing a tantrum. He's summoning the ambassadors from all the countries that voted in favor of the resolution. He's summoned the U.S. ambassador saying, "You're supposed to veto it. You work for us. I'm in control here." And just behaving like a bunch of spoiled brats out there. Over at the Simon Wiesenthal Center, they just issued their list, the annual list of the top 10 anti-Semitic, anti-Israel cases, and number 1 was this Security Council resolution. So now, according to Israel, not allowing Israel to commit illegal actions is now Jew hatred and anti-Semitism. We're supposed to steal the Palestinians' land, and you're an anti-Semite for saying it's wrong to do that. It is wrong to do that. Israel's saying they're going to slash funds going to the UN for various programs they're involved with. Netanyahu is saying we're going to rethink our relationship with the United Nations. Go ahead, Bibi, quit. They should have kicked you out a long time ago. Now, there's a big conference coming up in Paris that is an attempt to restart negotiations towards a two-state solution. And, of course, the reason the Security Council passed this resolution was because Israel's citing of the illegal settlements was designed to break up Palestine so that no contiguous chunk remains around which a Palestinian state could be formed. You know, this can't be part of Palestine. All these Israeli settlers are here. They're not supposed to be there. Yeah, but they're there now. So you just have to go. Or you're an anti-Semite, and you want Hitler to come back and gas the Jewish babies in the oven. Israel's talking about suspending working ties with every country that voted for the UN resolution. And here's where it gets just a little bit weird. Story out of endoftheamericandream.com, where Israel is out there reminding the United States that every time the U.S. does not do what Israel tells it to do, God smites our country. And to give you just one example, the last time the U.S. government refused to veto an anti-Israel resolution at the Security Council in 1979, and just weeks later, 3 Mile Island melted down. So if you don't do what Israel says, bad things will happen to your country. Israel's gone as far as to accuse Barack Obama of orchestrating the anti-settlement resolution, even though it was started by 4 other countries. And according to a story Gilad Altman just sent on over, actually it was Britain was pulling the strings on this. I think everybody has just had Israel up to here. And Democratic Representative Jim McDermott is saying Israel is effectively waging war against the U.S. government. And they're trying to find some way that they can arm twist Donald Trump into doing what Israel wants. And I'll tell you right now, I've never met Donald Trump, but my read of him is he's not going to react the way Israel thinks he's going to react. And that's been a hallmark throughout the entire Trump campaign. when they've tried to goad him, when they've tried to maneuver him, when they've tried to bully him. He takes a quick left turn and he wins the audience all over again. I don't think Trump is going to react the way Israel thinks he will. I think once Trump face-to-face sees how Israel's behaving, his ardor for Israel is going to cool tremendously. Now, one of the reasons Netanyahu is screaming and crying is because he's on the verge of a criminal probe for bribery, money laundering, and corruption. So he's looking at possible loss of office. All right, let's go back and grab some phone calls. Steve in Oregon. Aloha, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Okay. You just talked about what I want to talk about. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I'm a little bit confused on all this stuff because one of the things I look at is the UN being, I've always supported your side about the Palestinians, but at the same time, I'm starting to learn new things, and it's been kind of interesting to me. We've got the two, I won't mention names, but like you said, God's going to kill our country if we don't support Israel. That is ridiculous. I'm an avid Bible studier. I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and I think that stuff all happened already. So I take that out of my
that comment about bad things happen when you refuse Israel, that may be a veiled threat, where Israel is saying, if
probably,
we'll come in and blow something up on you.
That's what I think too. And then, so I go further than the United Nations. We know who they are and who built them and why are they doing this. And then I've got things like Obama hates this country, and so he's going to do this. I mean, it gets very confusing, and I appreciate your time to discuss some of this stuff because it's been more confusing to me. And then you've got also, the Palestinians, other people come from other countries, and they want Israel off the map. And I guess my thing is I have Northwest property up here in the country, and I take good care of it. Why doesn't God bless my land? Does God bless lands? And I cannot concept that. And these types of things that I don't like. But one of the things that's going on is, the fear tactic. Anyways, I'm sorry I'm stumbling over my words.
Okay, well, let me respond. Let me respond to some of what you said. Israel justifies its theft of the Palestinian land on the basis of a huge pack of outright lies. And before I get into them, we need to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. First of all, the vast majority of Jews living in Israel are not, in fact, blood descendants from the Hebrews. The
100% agree. Go ahead.
Yeah, the Ashkenazi are actually descended from Central Asian Khazars, who converted to Judaism in about 800 A.D., and then when Khazaria fell, they migrated northward into Russia and westward into Europe. That's where the Ashkenazi Jews come from. And saying that gives them a claim to Judea makes as much sense as my converting to a Native American religion and saying, you have to get off my land because we were here first. It really is rather silly. But
May I add to the biblical people out there, Jesus says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how I want to take you under my wing, but you killed all the prophets and blah, blah, blah. Then you can go to Revelations, and it is also talked, and I know you know this, Revelation talks about Jews are not really Jews. So those are two interesting scriptures that nobody ever talks about.
Well, my program is coming from more of a history, science, political point of view. And the idea is, Israel basically behaves, Israel's government, let me qualify that, Israel's government behaves abominably. They always have, and they always get away with it by exploiting this idea of being the descendants of the Hebrews. They have won tremendous political support from the end-time Christians in this country. Even though if you actually pay attention to that story, if the end times were to happen, the Jews in Israel get left behind. But they're constantly exploiting this religious fervor for their support. I mean, Mike Huckabee was out there the other day saying, as a Christian, I have to do this. And they've really exploited it very well. But the reality is that Israel was given a part of Palestine at the end of World War II, based on this dubious story about the Holocaust, but Israel didn't want to stay on that land. They wanted it all, And that's basically been the cause of all this grief ever since then. Israel dreams of Eretz Israel, from the Nile to the Euphrates, because after all, that's what's in the Old Testament.
And I kind of think that the Rothschilds put this all together to control the Middle East. So, I mean, that's another story overall. But, yeah, anyway, thank you very much for taking my call. And I'll connect with you sooner or later. I'm trying to figure this all out. But, yeah, I'm a Christian. I believe, well, I don't even know if I call myself that anymore. I just believe in Jesus. And I don't really care about Israel. I really let them fight it out. And I do know that Israel totally controlled, you know, for lobbyists and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's huge. And you know
it is. They play the game very well here. They're sucking vast amounts of money out of the United States and other countries as well. You know, the United States isn't the only host being parasitized by Israel. They have incredible amounts of wealth coming in, and then they kick it on back to keep bribing the government to keep this little scam going again. It's a giant kickback scheme. Anyway, Steve, going to let you go here.
Wait, do you think, one last thing, do you think that, you know, they're blaming the Saudi Arabia on 9/11 and a little bit, but I think the United States, the West, Israel was all part of it too. Do you believe that too?
Oh, absolutely. Saudi Arabia is just the latest attempt to divert blame from Israel. I mean, Saudi Arabia didn't have a motive. That's the part that's missing. Saudi Arabia has got tremendous amounts of money invested in the United States. They're not going to risk having that nationalized or confiscated by crashing airplanes into a building. If Saudi Arabia wanted to hurt the United States, all they got to do is ask for their money back, and it would crash the U.S. economy, and it would be perfectly legal for Saudi Arabia to do that. So they don't have a reason to crash airplanes into a building. Israel did, to try and demonize Muslims.
I agree 100%. Thank you for taking my call. I'll check in once in a while. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to switch over to Kathleen in Paris. Thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. A lot of things. I called in about something else, but you're on Saudi Arabia. I mean, the only part that I think I understand is that they provided the patsies, the 15 Arabs that were supposedly the...
No, they didn't actually, because the named hijackers turned out not to be on those airplanes. In fact, one of the named 9/11 hijackers turned out to be a pilot for the Saudi National Airline. He was still alive after 9/11 was over, and he successfully sued the U.S. government for defamation. And the corporate media didn't report that to you. But you know, whoever did 9/11 wanted it framed on Arabs and, basically all of Israel's enemies. They're all in cahoots together. And the evidence overwhelmingly points to a joint U.S.-Israeli operation. And they're in a panic now because with the corporate media losing control of the minds of the world, now people are starting to look back at things like 9/11 and say, you know, all those really weird questions about 9/11 that the independent media have been asking, yeah, we need to look at that stuff now.
Yeah, I hope Trump does that. Well, I called in when you were talking about other things. I participate in this BDS a little bit because just the smallest thing in the world, you know. I want to buy a machine to make carbonated water, but the only one I know of is SodaStream, and it's produced in the settlements.
Well, the SodaStream machine makes flavored soft drinks. If you just want carbonated water, you can go to any bartender supply and get a little CO2 soda water bottle. And those are made all over the place, so you can get that and then add flavoring to it afterwards. In my case, there's a company in Israel that makes batteries, and I won't buy from them. And it's got nothing to do with BDS. They're terrible batteries. They don't last for the money that you spend for them.
And then the other thing is, I've been doing using DuckDuckGo for searches instead of Google, and I've been happy.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, I wanted to say about Obama pardoning the Clintons. I tend to think, I don't know what you think, but I tend to think that he will pardon them mainly because he's so implicated and it's in no other way except complicit. That if they're tried, he'll be tried too.
Could very well be, but like I said, if he goes ahead and he issues a pardon for the Clintons, it's tantamount to a confession that major crimes have been committed, and because Obama is not in control of future history anymore, this pardon will follow him as part of his legacy.
But when Hillary was defending herself about the server, she did this thing, shot across the bow, so to speak, and saying everybody knew, and then we find out that yes, everybody, including Obama, was corresponding with her on the server, so of course they knew.
Well,
it
gets even worse than that. There's an anonymous FBI source who's been pointing out that, to nobody's surprise, the Clinton Foundation is a slush fund. The IRS is currently investigating them as to whether they qualify as a 501c3. They don't, because a 501c3 has to spend 51% of its money on charitable work. The Clinton Foundation has spent something like 8 or 9%. And when the IRS rules the Clinton Foundation is not tax exempt, that tax bill is going to turn the Clintons into poor people, and I can't think of a more fitting punishment for money junkies. But this FBI source is saying everybody in high positions in Washington, D.C. was dipping into this. The reason Obama might go ahead with this pardon is because, like Watergate, if the true scale of what was going on were made known to the public, it would instantly delegitimize the entire government. Nobody would want to have anything to do with Washington, D.C. ever again, except for the museums. Those are cool.
Yeah, so I tend to think that that's the way they'll go. He'll pardon them, and
we'll make sure that he carries that stain with him into the history books.
Mm-hmm. And then we all have to just swallow hard and try to go on.
Well, there's a little wrinkle there, because Obama can only pardon the crimes that he's aware of, which means if other crimes surface, the pardon wouldn't apply. The Constitution does not allow the president to give anybody in this country a carte blanche, saying whatever they do is okay, they're above the law. That's not in the Constitution.
Okay.
Okay?
Huh. Okay.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.
We're going to switch over to Peter in Los Angeles. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael. I agree with that lady, by the way, that she will get pardoned. Hillary will get pardoned, and it's because that Obama is deeply implicated in all this. He appointed her. He knew what she was. He knew all about her, and that was his big appointment. But at any rate, every time he got an email that did not say .gov on it, he knew what she was doing.
Well, it's even worse. It's even worse than that, because all of this stuff that was going on with terrorists in Syria, Benghazi, and everything, Hillary did not do any of that on her own authority. So Obama is up to his neck in what happened at the Benghazi consulate. We already know that he lied about the email server. Remember when he got up there and he said, I just found out about it from the TV news, the same as you. We found out that was a lie. Yeah, Obama may just feel he's got to issue the pardon. The question is, do we, the American people, accept a blanket pardon as legitimate? It certainly is not in compliance with the law, because under the law, you must first be convicted of a crime in a court of law, then you can apply for a pardon and be granted one. And unfortunately, Gerald Ford's blanket pardon of Richard Nixon and the Watergate conspirators was actually illegal and unconstitutional, but everybody did a nudge-nudge, wink-wink, and went along with it because they knew that what was underneath that blanket pardon could bring the entire government down.
To add one more thing to that, Obama was communicating with her on that under an assumed name years before he admitted to the press that, he said he found out with the press on it. But that's not what I'm calling about, Michael. I'm calling about the article you had about the NSA and the Cyber Warfare Command. that you ran, and I know I've said this before. This is not simply Hillary that's attacking your servers, that's attacking all the independent medias in every way, from disinformation to everything else. This is the U.S. military and intelligence.
Well, it's also Israel. It's also Israel. Israel's attacking my site, especially now in the aftermath of this Security Council resolution. Anyway, Peter, got to let you go. Got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're going to go ahead and take 3 more phone calls, and we're going to do some news here for a bit. Ken in Fort Worth, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Howdy, hey. Yeah, howdy. Hey, 2 items. Item number 1, Taco Bell's using a hooked X. Number 2, the F-35 was downtown Fort Worth by the Kennedy Memorial. They put it in 4 trailers. They're going to haul it to the Rose Bowl game.
Really? They're not going to fly to the Rose Bowl?
No. That thing's a composite, some kind of composite material. Probably the real one's parts, breaks off like a cracker. Who knows,
Okay, well, so anyway, this is just a mock-up they're going to have on display on one of the floats. Okay, I understand how that works.
4 trailers hauling. It's going to be at the Rose Bowl this weekend if people want to go see it.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to James in Texas. Aloha, James. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
Doing good.
I wanted to talk about, how you said that Donald Trump might, go against Israel. What makes you think that he might? And then I'll give you my reason that I think that he won't. Well,
during the campaign, Donald Trump made the obligatory comments about supporting Israel, but reading the Israeli media, Israel wasn't buying it. They wanted Hillary. And Donald Trump, looking at how he handles himself in business, he's not a man to get pushed. And if there's one thing Israel is, it's pushy and pushy and pushy. And especially with Israel's image being damaged with the Security Council resolution, followed by Netanyahu's clear tantrums, I think Trump is going to feel he's got a little more maneuvering room to basically stand up with him. And his approach to Israel is going to be, we're going to evaluate your requests on a case-by-case-by-case basis, rather than a blanket, we'll just do whatever you tell us to do.
So you don't think that he's bought, or you don't think he's in the pockets of them, right?
I don't think he's in the pockets of anybody. That's why the establishment was so dead set on keeping him out of the White House.
Well, let me. What do you know about the 1987 U.S. stock market crash?
The 87 stock market crash, that's going back a ways. And I read...
Here's what I found out. In 1987, after the stock market crashed, New York real estate took a major plunge.
Yes.
A lot of contractors went out of business. And from what I know, even the documentary that came out, the actual lawyer for the bank, Donald Trump owed over $4 billion to 77.
Yeah, that's
banks.
when he had to go into bankruptcy.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. One of the lawyers said to the thing said, well, why didn't you just get those assets? And then he said, because he's basically worth more to us alive than dead, and because he could sell these assets. So.
Well, that sounds like a reasonable sounds like a reasonable banking decision. Unfortunately, in the foreclosure market, we haven't seen that thinking, where the foreclosing mortgage companies don't seem to understand that keeping that property occupied and under repair is going to generate a better return in the long run. During the aftermath of the 2008 mortgage-backed security fraud meltdown, and they were foreclosing homes all over the place, these properties were just allowed to sit. Metal thieves were stealing the aluminum siding and the plumbing and the pipes and the wire out of the house. The interior frame was exposed to the elements, and they wound up having to condemn all those buildings and leave just the land as having any kind of a value. And it was a very short-sighted way of doing that business. But when you're looking at these really large assets, it does make sense that you're going to come to some kind of an agreement to keep them occupied, to keep them maintained, and keep them functional, or in the long run, you're going to lose more money.
Yeah, I understand all that, but you know that normal people wouldn't be able to get that type of opportunity.
No, rich people get that kind of opportunity.
They sold out.
Rich people get that kind of an
unless you sell yourself out. That's what I'm saying. Like that's what I'm saying. I don't know. You think that because everybody, you see the Christians.
Okay, well, look, I'm sorry. I hate to do this. I'm going to have to let you go. We got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be back with another phone call. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones here. Mo in Florida. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. Thanks for taking my call. Good to have you back. I just canceled my Twitter account, or not Twitter, but Facebook account. Never really used it anyway, but it still felt good. But I don't really. You said there was a couple alternatives. And what were those again? What was your top two?
Well, there's Scene.life. There's Gab.
That S-E-E?
Actually, if you look at my website, over in the left bar, there's a whole display of Follow Me On, and there are links to those websites. And there's more coming along every day.
Okay, my other comment, I'll be brief, is I think Twitter's going to do good as long, because I think Trump. He kind of runs that thing. If they ever really start screwing around on Twitter, he could get like 1 million people to quit in a week. You know, so I think that kind of tells you how legit he is with it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think what's going to happen. His son-in-law is apparently starting a media operation of their own, and I think once that is up and online, and by the way, I am available if you need me. I think that we'll see Donald Trump basically use that as his mechanism to communicate with the American people. Certainly, Donald Trump understands the current corporate media is not his friend. They are still trying to distort what he's saying. They're still trying to discredit him and delegitimize him. And Donald Trump knows exactly who is on his side and who is not. And I think 2017, we can look forward to a year of dramatic changes.
Well, I hope he is. I think he is legit. I don't know. I don't like the connections he's got with you know who, but with Israel and Goldman Sachs and all that. I know he's got to get good people, but it's almost
at the same time. Hang on, somebody with that kind of money, it's inevitable you're going to be in contact with people like Goldman Sachs and the Wall Street bankers. It's not like he could refuse to do business with them all these years.
Yeah. No, I think you have very good instincts, Michael, and that's why I watch your show. But thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you. We're going to switch over to Tom in Utah. And Tom, what's on your mind? Tom, are you there?
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah.
Can you hear? Yeah, Mike. I just want to tell you, I have Jewish lineage, and I kind of cringe when everybody's putting the finger of blame on the Jews. My relatives in Israel and my friends will tell you, quite frankly, if they can trust you with their true feelings, they know that they're nothing more than cannon fodder for, excuse my expression, these godless men who've hijacked the Israeli nation and that criminal cabal. They don't give a crap about my relatives that live in Jerusalem or in Tel Aviv. They're nothing more than cannon fodder for those criminal bankers.
Same situation that we have here. Now, I will apologize up front here because I try and make a point of saying the government of Israel or Israel's government rather than simply saying Israel. I'm not always, on that, but I do try and make that delineation. The same thing when I talk about the United States of America, and I'm talking about the U.S. government is engaged in war crimes, not the American people. And the same thing applies to the people of Israel. It is the government of Israel that is committing these crimes and behaving like such children over at the United Nations. The same thing over in the Islamic countries. Most of those people are very cool, and there's just a bunch of political opportunists who are trying to stir up chaos out of which they think they're going to gain money and power.
You know, in fact, a lot of my relatives left because they were tired of being the Dixie cups, disposable Jews for that criminal cabal that is simply trying to exploit people. Yes, absolutely.
All right, well, listen, Tom, thank you very much for the insight. We're going to let you go here. We're going to close the phone lines for a little bit because I have got some news I need to share with you. Getting on back to Israel's government's unhealthy influence over our society, Google has now modified their search algorithm. If you search for any information about the Holocaust, the sites that question the official story are now invisible. You cannot use Google to find any articles calling into question the official story of the Holocaust. Now, during the commercial break, I went over to Yandex.com, and I ran the search there, and all of the various articles on both sides of the issue are still visible there. So my recommendation to you is to stop using Google and go over and use Yandex. Because if you want the truth, you're not going to find it from Google, you're not going to find it from Twitter, you're not going to find it from Facebook. They have been co-opted. They are now part of the corporatized, filtered media. And our best approach to that is to simply ignore them, the way we're ignoring CNN. CNN's ratings are at an all-time record low. More people are watching the gardening channel than are watching CNN. And we can do exactly the same thing to Google and Facebook. Stop using them. Just go over to these new up-and-comers. Give them your business. That caller was saying vote with your dollars. In this case, vote with, your willingness to look at online advertising. And stop going to Google and Facebook. I mean, they're already, Facebook's already having to resort to cheating to stay in business. They keep finding all these mistakes in their metrics that artificially inflate their ad revenues. That's an act of desperation. They know they're in trouble. Look at the stock prices. People want to go where they're going to know they find the truth. And the more the U.S. government tries to co-opt social media and turn it into another ministry of propaganda, the more people are going to go someplace else. The same exact thing happened in the former Soviet Union. Pravda was completely government-controlled. Izvestia was completely government-controlled. All the TV stations and radio and the Soviet citizens set up a network of fax machines, the samizdat, an unofficial means of mass communication peer-to-peer, and through this they learned how corrupt the Politburo and the Kremlin had become, and the Soviet Union fell. And the same thing could easily happen here. And as long as the U.S. government and the corporate media refuse to evolve and adapt to the new reality of a skeptical, better informed population, then they are basically signing their own doom. That's just what's going to happen. Now, moving on here to the economic news. The Italian bank Monte Paschi has a capital shortfall surge to 75%. It's looking like there's a run on the bank. And apparently it's something like 8 billion euro to what they're calling a rapid liquidity deterioration. Don't you love the euphemisms? We're having a rapid liquidity deterioration. Yeah, the people are showing up, pounding on the door and saying, give us our money. And that's one of the reasons they're pushing for a cashless society, so that your money is locked in the bank and they don't have to give it back to you when they're in trouble. Story coming out of Express in Great Britain. Euro on the brink, investors predict currency collapse, with Italy as the number one worry child. And they're basically saying 1 out of every 5 investors are now predicting there will be a Eurozone collapse and breakup. It's starting to happen. The New World Order has stumbled badly, and it's coming apart between that built-in self-destruct device of the European Central Bank predating upon all the people and this brain-dead refugee program. Bitcoin is now surpassing fiat currency totals in 124 countries. People are getting tired of the private central banks. Meanwhile, Deutsche Bank has agreed to yet another settlement, $7.2 billion over mortgage fraud, and nobody goes to jail. How are they going to cover that $7.2 billion? Well, most of it's going to come off their taxes. So that gets shifted onto you. And the rest they'll recover by increasing fees to their customers or engaging in yet another fraud. Because as long as these bankers don't get sent to jail, they don't have a reason to stop doing what they're doing. Now, as part of Obama's Polish the Legacy tour, the White House is now out there touting how Obama provided tax relief in leading the economic rescue of the United States of America. There has been no economic rescue. We still have over 90 million Americans out of work, unable to find jobs. Obamacare has bankrupted not only families, but some of the health insurance providers. Obama is literally trying to write his own future history, and it's not going to work. Because in the age of the internet, in the age of the independent media, the victors no longer write the history books. We, the people, will decide what we think history needs to remember, and we'll remember it. Newt Gingrich is out there slamming Barack Obama and his polished the Legacy tour, saying his legacy is going to disappear. And it will. What are we going to remember him for? Obamacare, being the first Nobel Prize winner to bomb 7 countries after winning the Nobel Peace Prize? Benghazi? He hasn't really done much of anything that he can point to. That's why they're trying to fictionalize it. Now let's talk about immigration, since we're on the topic there. Apparently, in Germany, some of these refugees were arrested for setting a homeless man on fire on Christmas Eve. That's how out of control it is over there. And the German people are fed up. Now, Angela Merkel, who is standing for election again, is trying to make it look like she's doing something about it. Merkel is now asking the German authorities to tighten legislation for migrants. The horse is out of the barn. Closing the door isn't going to do anything. The damage has been done. Germany is flooded with the rejects from all these other countries. Because migration is a filter. You're not getting the best of the people from those source countries. The best people, the successful ones, are staying right where they are. The ones who are migrating are the ones who couldn't make it in their home country. They don't have skills. They're fleeing prosecution. And that's what's pouring into Europe, courtesy of the New World Order and George Soros. And Obama, in anticipation of having to turn over the keys to the White House to Donald Trump next month, is opening the floodgates to more Muslim refugees than ever before, especially Somalis, just trying to flood the country, saying, I think America should be full of refugees and to heck with what Donald Trump wants. Well, there's going to be some work right there. You want to talk about bringing back the jobs? Refugee hunter. Bounty hunter. Let's get Dog, the bounty hunter, out there, hunting down these illegal immigrants, especially the ones who voted in the last election. Let's hunt them down, not as refugees, not as foreigners, but as people who committed crimes against the laws of the United States of America, which they did the instant they set foot across that border without the correct paperwork, which they did when they voted in our elections. TrueTheVote.org and VoteFraud.org are both estimating over 3 million non-citizens voted in this last general election. Let's start by hunting them all down for election fraud and flinging them over the border. Now, we had a caller into the show earlier about this Drexel University professor, George Cicciarillo Maher, who tweeted out on Christmas Eve, all I want for Christmas is white genocide. And it drew a huge response, as well it should. What if he tweeted out, all I want for Christmas is a black genocide? Or all I want for Christmas is a Hispanic genocide? Or the gays? Or women? They'd go ballistic. White genocide, corporate media, who cares? Now, the story was picked up in the American Thinker and elsewhere, and under pressure from the school administration, Mayer has clarified his statement, saying that when the whites were massacred during the Haitian Revolution, that was a good thing. That's what he meant to say. No, that isn't what he said. He said, what I want for Christmas is a white genocide. When did white people become the new target, the new scapegoat? Well, as I mentioned to that caller, what we're dealing with here is a liberal political system that has appealed to various groups in our culture and telling them, you would be hugely successful if it wasn't for those evil white straight men. I mean, this goes all the way back to the feminist, the militant feminism of the 1990s, where all these political hack jobs were out there telling women, you'd be the CEO if it wasn't for those men. And they were literally fostering hatred of men for political gain. And the same thing happened this last year. Oh, let's get the blacks hating the whites. Let's get the gays hating the straights. Let's get the women hating the men. And now all of a sudden we have a society where it's considered okay to be hating straight white men, even though we haven't done a gosh darn thing other than be victimized ourselves by political opportunists. You don't cure racism by being racist in reverse. It doesn't work that way. Now, thanks to Oliver Stone, thousands of JFK assassination files are about to be released. Back in 1991, Stone came out with his movie about JFK, and it was a groundbreaking film. It was the first major movie to deal with the questions of the Kennedy assassination and District Attorney Jim Garrison's trial of CIA asset Clay Shaw. And as a response to the public outcry, Congress passed the 1992 JFK Records Act, which said 25 years from now we're going to release all the records. I'm sure by now they have been sanitized. But the National Archives is in the process of getting ready for the release of all of this. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And we've got some breaking news going on here. According to Global Research up in Canada, and they're quoting Izvestia on this, a group of British generals and military advisors have arrived in Syria to recruit and train the terrorist groups that have withdrawn from Aleppo. They're basically going to try and regroup them, reform them, and sick them back on Bashar al-Assad. This is an act of war by Great Britain. And I told you, though, the war hawks want a hot war with anybody before Donald Trump can get on in there. Meanwhile, up in Ukraine, it looks like Ukraine itself is in full-blown collapse and dealing with the economic results of this prolonged war against the eastern Ukrainian breakaway republics. Now, NATO is starting to make noises about getting on in there to help Ukraine recapture the eastern Ukrainian republics, forgetting that it is the eastern Ukrainian republics' right to break off and form their own countries under the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Meanwhile, we have that strange death of the NATO Auditor General that was reported as a suicide, but he was found miles away from where he would normally be. This Mr. Chandelier had 3 registered guns, but the gun found with the body was untraceable, and now it's come on out, according to Flemish newspapers, the gun found with the body was actually in the glove box of the car, and I have a hunch this guy didn't put it back in the glove box after it was used. Meanwhile, over the Christmas weekend, 61 shot in Chicago. Gee, I thought they had gun control there. That was held up as the model of gun control. We're going to ban the guns, and people are going to be saying 61. All right, let's grab a quick phone call. Fred in Iowa, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, howdy. I haven't been on RBN in over a month, and I'm knowing for my brother. But I got to get it all out, or it's going to sound bad. Okay, that last caller that said that he had relatives in Israel, and the people that run and control the state of Israel are not Jews. Now, there is Jewish genocide, and let me explain that. I'm a Gentile, but I'm spiritually a Jew. Allow me to explain that. I'm a follower of Christ. Now, the Roman papacy, which is the beast of Revelation, is the enemy of the world. But that does not mean Catholics are bad. So when I say about Rome, the papacy...
Okay, Fred, I'm sorry. We ran out of time. We're going to have to let you go here, and we'll be back after station identification. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, hour number 3, and the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Before we get back to phone calls, though, some breaking news. Apparently in southern Syria, the Al-Qaeda rebels have just surrendered to the Syrian army. So at this point, those generals who are going on in to try and regroup what remains of the Aleppo terrorists may be too little too late. This thing is coming apart. And obviously, Russia is going to go right to the United Nations and say, look, the British officers have no business in there. Neither do the Americans. They're not invited in by the legitimate government of Syria. They're committing an act of war. And that's absolutely true. Now, amazingly enough, maybe the New York Times is starting to realize the times they are a-changing, and they're going to have to adapt and adjust to what's going on. Apparently, the New York Times today ran a long piece titled Liberal Zionism in the Age of Trump by Omri Bohm of the New School, saying that liberal Zionism is a contradiction. Saying liberal American Jews have identified themselves with Zionism, a political agenda rooted in the denial of liberal politics. And Bohm's most startling point is a reminder that Zionism has anti-Semitic roots because they collaborated with the Nazis. They were willing to sacrifice other Jews to have the bloody shirts in order to wave to create the nation of Israel. That's the reason for all that Holocaust stuff. I mean, think about it. At the end of World War II, the world had sacrificed much blood and treasure for this idea that Germany did not have the right to march into somebody else's country and take it for their own use. And yet that is precisely what the Zionists wanted to do to Palestine. How to sell that idea. So they needed a propaganda device that was so powerful that what the world refused to allow Germany to do to France and Poland and everywhere else, they would turn around and say, yeah, it's okay for Israel to do this to Palestine. And that's where that whole thing came from. Delousing became gassing. Slave labor camps became extermination centers. And you'd be amazed how many of the claims that were being made back then have already been completely discredited. That soap is not, in fact, made out of humans. It's made out of pigs, which is kind of embarrassing for those people who buried them. The lampshade's made out of human skin. Turns out it's goat skin. Science has caught up with a lot of this. Ground-penetrating radar shows there are no mass graves at Treblinka. The below-ground strata is undisturbed from when it was laid down by the last great ice age. That's the reason for it all, and that's the reason it is the most protected secret by Israel and its allies, because it's the entire justification for Israel being allowed to steal Palestine from the Palestinians. Now then, back to the phones. Ernest in Reno, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I called you a while back regarding the God of this world aspect of Israel, and I just wanted to kind of develop on that. In order to get a full grasp of the Israel thing, you got to understand the spiritual thing. You don't have to believe it. I don't believe it. I believe, that Israel really is. They're motivated by it, because they do believe it, and we have to understand that.
Well, like we would understand any theocracy or any nation that's ruled by religious hysteria. We do have to comprehend it in order to understand why they're behaving the way that they are. Whether it's Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Scientology, you have to understand it.
Well, you see, the fact that they're saying that the United States will be punished because we're turning against the God of this world, that suggests to me that they can effect these kind of things, just like 9/11. And that suggests to me that they have the technology to be able to do that, which, I don't believe that this God of this world is, I do believe in a most high creator, but it's not the one in the Old Testament. And from what I believe that there are, what's one man's magic is another man's advanced technology.
Yeah, Arthur C. Clarke's Law. But, you're not the only person who is looking at this article about all the bad things that happened to the U.S. when they refused Israel as a thinly veiled warning by Israel, saying, we're going to make you pay for what you just did to us. And so there's probably something very ugly about to happen, probably on the New Year's Day or New parade or whatnot, and it'll be blamed on the Muslims. But, if you look at Netanyahu's behavior right now, he's clearly lost it. He's in a total panic because, he's facing prosecution for corruption, money laundering, and bribery. And he understands that if he loses his seat in charge of Israel, he's not going to be able to hold that prosecution off. And just looking at the panic that he's in about how, we're going to end diplomatic relations with all these countries, and we're going to stop funding the United Nations, and we're going to rethink our association with the UN. Sure, go ahead, Bibi. Go ahead and quit the United Nations. They should have kicked you out a long time ago for being a rogue nation who will not comply with international law. Israel holds the all-time world record for most United Nations resolutions openly defied. And you need to remember that Israel's membership at the United Nations was the only one that came with conditions on it. One of the conditions attached to Israel's joining the United Nations was a Palestinian right of return, where the Palestinians who were kicked out of their homes and their villages during the creation of Israel be allowed to come on back. The second condition was if the Palestinians of their own free will chose not to return, Israel would financially compensate them for their lost properties. Israel hasn't complied with either one of those. Israel's arrogance in the face of the United Nations, they just don't care what the General Assembly says, and up until now, they have always relied on the United Nations to protect them in the Security Council. They didn't get it this time. I think this was Obama's flipping the bird to Benjamin Netanyahu after all the nonsense that Obama's had to take from Israel all these years.
Well, Mike, this is more than just human beings squabbling. What you have is two aspects of the God of this world fighting each other, Ishmael and Isaac.
Okay, well, hang on a second. First of all, this is not a religious radio show, and mine is not a religious...
Well, I understand that.
Okay, well, then you need to understand, we need to stay with the history, the politics, and the facts on the ground, and this other stuff is more appropriate to other radio shows, okay? So...
Right. I'm not trying to talk to you in religious aspects. What I'm saying is that the technology suggests that if you look at the end-time prophecies, they can affect these kind of things that they say are going to happen. They affected Israel coming back as a nation. So to me, that tells me there has to, well, not has to be, but there could be something higher than human beings that are...
Okay, well, now we're getting back into religion. Ernest, thank you very much. We're going to let you go. Okay. Let us remain in the real world here, people. And we're going to switch over to Scott in Norfolk. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, I found something out about the state of Israel that really was astounding to me. You probably already know it. But do you know that every single prime minister, with the exception of 2, has a legal alias? They don't go by the names they were born with?
Okay, I'm not surprised. Oh, by the way, we got to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who rejoined our network, and I'm a little late getting that, but okay, we've done that. Stalin, head of the Soviet Union, that wasn't his real name.
Well, I went through each leader because I couldn't believe it. I just was astounded by it. The 2 leaders who did not change their names, Omer, who's I think still in jail, and Netanyahu didn't change his name, but his dad did change his last name. It was a Polish last name.
Mm-hmm.
So they've all changed their names. Usually it's Polish-sounding European name to a more Hebrew-sounding name.
Well, that makes a lot of sense because they're trying to obscure the fact that the Ashkenazi Jews did not originate from the Hebrews.
I had a friend of mine who's a pastor went to Israel, and he was shocked. He said, I didn't realize that so many Israelis were brown. And now this is a guy who studies the Bible, and I was telling him, I said, you do know that people who live out in the desert are not lily white European-looking people like Netanyahu.
Mm-hmm.
And he was shocked. Now, there are so many people that are ignorant of the facts about the fake state. I call it the fake state of Israel. Yeah. I just don't like calling it Israel. In fact, I just corrected a coworker today who mentioned the term anti-Semite. And I said, do you know what Semite means? And they said, no. And I said, well, it means, Semitic-speaking people, people who speak the Semitic language. And there are more people that speak those languages that are non-Jews than are Jews.
Yeah, it includes the Arabs.
And you can't say, that's like saying you're anti-English speaking people. That's not racist. That's not even bigoted. It doesn't make any sense, to be honest with you. And people, otherwise intelligent people are saying things they have no idea what it means.
Well, this gets back to something I keep saying all the time. Beliefs are chains that hold free minds slaves. And whether it's social studies or Sunday school, they grab the kids when they're too young to understand the big people are full of it, and they feed them all these beliefs to just believe without question that our government is good, that there's an imaginary playmate in the sky, and then as the child grows and matures, their personality evolves around those core beliefs. They become part of their identity, part of their personality, and they're trapped by them. They're enslaved by them. It takes a tremendous effort of will to break that. And that's why you'll find people who are incredibly intelligent and educated who are still trapped by the beliefs, because the beliefs are put in there when they're very, very young. All their education and awareness and brilliance is a thin veneer over the outside of it.
Well, I tell you what, and I agree with what you said, and that makes the people like us kind of hesitate before we try to talk to these folks.
Oh, yeah, you've got to be very, very careful.
Because they will turn on you. Now, I remember something you said years ago. I used to be a liberal. I bought into the global warming thing, the whole thing, without even knowing what the hell it was. I just thought, well, if it prevents pollution, it's good. And there was something you said. It was a simple sentence. You said that until we can I'm paraphrasing. This is not exactly what you said. Until we can quantify the amount of pollution coming from submarine volcanoes, we can't possibly say how much pollution man is making and how much of an effect it's having on the environment.
Well, you got it almost correctly. It wasn't pollution, it was heat. How much heat is coming from the thermal vents on the ocean floor. If you don't know that, then claims about how much human activity is warming the ocean are just a scientific wild-ass guess.
When you said that, that's so logical, right? There's no really debating it. I don't care how much I believe in global warming. It can't dispute that logic, you know. And I thank God I thank you that you said that.
I appreciate the sentiment.
Warming, it is the biggest scam ever. It's a backdoor to a global tax and a global government and eventually a global military. It is a scam. These people don't give a damn about our environment. They never have.
They don't. No, they don't. And what's important here, the important part here, is people are now waking up and realizing there isn't just one or two huge scams. We are literally surrounded by a tsunami of lies, fraud, and deception, whether it's the orthodox account of World War II, human-caused global warming, Saddam's weapons of mass destruction, all of it. We are lied to every single day of our lives by politicians aided by the corporate media. And as people come to understand that scale of the lies, they're beginning to wake up and realize just what utter fools the government and corporate media have made of them, and they're getting angry, and they should. They should.
Well, I'm glad that we're alive to see something like Brexit and see a Trump presidency.
Me too.
These two things clearly run in the face of what the global establishment wanted, and I hope we destroy them. I really hope we destroy them.
I think they're in the process of destroying themselves. We just have to sit back with our popcorn and our soda pop and just watch the show. They're tearing themselves apart. Corporate media is destroying themselves. New World Order is destroying themselves. We don't have to do a thing at this point.
If I can bring up one quick other subject, Mike.
Sure.
I'm really tired of seeing all this news coverage of the royal family in England and other royal families. These families are kept in place for a reason. In case things break down, they hope to use these as a bridge. And I implore everybody not to fall into the falling in love with the royal families or following them or thinking that they're benign. They're not. They're kept in place for a reason. If this economy crashes or the global elite crashes, this is going to be one avenue the elites are going to refer to. They're going to refer to royal families to bring people together. And that's how they're going to get their power back. I would do away with them completely. They're not benign. They're not powerless. They've got an awful lot of power, especially the tax havens the royal family runs of England.
Well, let's talk about England. Let's talk about England real quick here. First of all, the Brits, for the most part, think the royal family is traditional. It is their connection with British history. There are people standing right there, who are the descendants of the people we learn about in our history books. The other part of it is you need to understand how much of Great Britain the royal family actually physically owns. And that's another reason why they can't just kick them out without nationalizing those holdings. Now, the latest word we have is that the Queen was unable to attend the Christmas service. First time she missed it in 30 years. And that, we're seeing all these people who are leaving us now, like John from Barbados and Carrie Fisher. It may be that we're coming up on the coronation of King Charles.
I'm really sad that these type of institutions have still survived. It's really a credit to the corporate media to keep them alive.
Well, that's the corporate media's job, but now the corporate media is in decline, and we may start seeing something else happen. We might see post-Brexit the royal family basically allowed to keep their physical wealth, but told you're not royalty anymore. You're just very rich people, and you're going to have to live like ordinary British subjects, and the Prime Minister is not going to have to kneel before the Queen and request permission to form a government after winning his election.
Which, to us as a people of the United States, we just can't imagine kneeling before anybody.
No, we're not supposed to.
It's not right, and it's an insult to one's self to do something like that. Well, I hope we grow out of this stuff and get rid of it once and for all. Because, like I say, these families are around for a reason. In case the government collapses, or in case, like in the sense of globalized governments, they're going to use these royal families to bring back order. and that'll be their bridge to reestablish.
I don't know how well that might work when you have a population who sees the old order and the old establishment as the cause of the problem. We might see, in the event of a social collapse in Great Britain, their royals might get treated the same way France treated theirs back in 1793 to 1808.
And you know what's interesting? I had some friends that are from France, and they say that to this day, they're not allowed to have organized clubs. It's very difficult. I mean, to have organized meetings, they just don't trust them.
I'm not surprised. I mean, France has definitely gone down this whole dictatorship, fake terror, you know, everybody loves Israel and all the rest of it. Anyway, listen, Scott, need to let you go. We got another caller waiting on the line. We'll be back after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to go back to the phones. Mike in Tennessee, thank you for waiting. What's on your mind? Mike, are you there? Mike in Tennessee? Going once? Going twice? I guess he walked away from the phone. All right, we'll put him back on hold and see if he comes back. Now then, interesting little story. We have seen in this country where the government just seems to have decided they have a right to control every single aspect of your life. And the latest abuse is taking place near Butte Falls, Oregon, where there's this couple who bought a 10-acre property, and on the property there's a pond which has been there for 40 years and represents one of the positive features of the property. It's very scenic. It's very scenic. And now the Jackson County Watermaster's Office has come on in and declared this couple have to destroy this 2-acre pond because the watershed belongs to the state. You're not allowed to have a pond of water on your property. If you want water, go and buy it from Nestle. And the pond has been there for 40 years, at least. And the government just comes on in and says, we've decided you can't have the pond anymore. We've been seeing all across the country where people are being told they can't even collect rainwater on their property. And when you look at this growing problem of lead contamination, because it's turning out literally thousands of U.S. areas have toxic levels of lead in their drinking water. Flint, Michigan is actually low down on the list. It's not the most dangerous lead hotspot. There are plenty of cities that are far, far worse. And that damage to your child from drinking that water is irreversible. You can get the lead out through chelation. The neurological damage is permanent. And the government that is basically pumping that toxic water through your faucets is out there saying you can't collect fresh rainwater on your property as an alternative to what comes out of the faucet. If you want safe, clean drinking water, you will buy it from Nestle. I mean, it really has gotten completely out of control. Okay, I understand Mike is back. Mike, are you there?
I am. Greetings, Michael.
Greetings. What's on your mind today?
Well, you were touching on a subject earlier about the obvious control of the mainstream media, and I read an article recently about the CIA controlling it. Well, that's been going on for a long time, and someone called in and talked about the CIA being in cahoots with the presidency. Well, if you notice, virtually every president has been a control agent for the CIA for a long, long time. It's not that the CIA works for the president, it's that the president works for the CIA. Your listener's close, but not exact.
Well, technically, under the rules, CIA is supposed to work for the president. The reality is CIA has a bad habit of going their own way, and there have been numerous presidents through the years who have said, this is completely out of control, and they need to be brought down. John F. Kennedy, following the Bay of Pigs, wanted to break up the CIA. He wanted to transfer authority for covert operations back to the Pentagon. Harry Truman had serious misgivings about Central Intelligence, and the CIA is a power and force unto itself, and I would say probably that presidents and the CIA sort of grudgingly sort of tolerate each other, and that's about it. But as far as the CIA's control of the media, that goes back at least to the end of World War II, when the CIA was studying how the Nazis used the media of that day, especially the radio broadcasts, those nationwide radio broadcasts by Hitler that just galvanized the people with this shared group experience, because those German people were sitting on their radio listening to Adolf Hitler and knowing that every other German in the entire country was listening at the same time. That was a very powerful psychological tool. So the CIA started a program called Operation Mockingbird to bring the corporate media under U.S. government control. And as a matter of fact, I just posted my article on Mockingbird to the main page of what really happened. So, yeah, the CIA is very dangerous, and they keep getting into trouble. All right, we got to take a break for commercials. Thank you for the phone call, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. So let's talk about human-caused global warming. We're hearing from up in Calgary that over the Christmas weekend, the city was forced to spend $2 million dealing with the snow and ice. Councilman Ward Sutherland was quoted in the Calgary Herald as saying he had to shovel out his own driveway 5 times during the weekend. That tells you how heavy it is. We're hearing reports all across the Great Plains, black ice, all kinds of cold weather. And still we have the corporate media saying, oh, it's really warm up there in the Arctic. And interestingly enough, looking at the actual raw temperature data, the temperature did cross the 0 degree centigrade for just a short time, and then it went right back down. And on the basis of that, the corporate media was out there saying, the Arctic is melting, it's lost 7 New Jerseys worth of ice, it's unseasonably warm up there. Still trying to push that whole global warming thing. And the new tactic is, yes, it's cold where you are, but the world is warming, but all the heat is someplace you can't get to, and verify it for yourself. And again, there are problems with some of the instrumentation. One of the ways they artificially created a warming world is that NOAA, claiming budgetary restraints, started shutting down temperature monitoring stations in the rural parts of the United States, saying it was costing too much to go on out and check them. Well, rural areas with lots of greenery are naturally cool. They're much cooler than the cities, which suffer from what's called the heat island effect, which is the heat generated by sunlight on pavement, and the fact that you're surrounded by buildings that have air conditioners pumping the heat inside the building to be outside. In fact, over at my ClimateGate page, we have photographs of official NOAA temperature measuring stations located in the hot outflow from building air conditions. In one case, right next to a trash incinerator. Now, apparently, the United States' highest paid climate change expert just got sentenced to 32 months in federal prison on fraud charges. This was a guy who was all over the TV news and everything, and apparently was just spinning a tale that was a complete fabrication of the corporate media. Oh, yes, he's talking global warming, put him on the camera. And he just got sent to prison for 32 years. All right, let's. Mike in Tennessee apparently wanted to say something more. Mike, what's on your mind?
Hey, I just wanted to give people a glimpse into what is in their near future. All you got to do is look to the north. In Canada right now, there are people that's sitting in prison for nothing more than disputing the government's official line. And the public goes along with it. And anybody that disagrees with the government's propaganda, they get accused of being a nut job. They're tried, convicted, and they go to prison. They go away. They're silenced. And also to the north, this is something unique, and people in the media will not tell you this, but look around. You know anybody that's a policeman that used to work, let's say, a city cop, then he became a county cop, then he moved to a state job. They carry their retirement with them. How could they do that since these are all different municipal government organizations? Because they're all tied in. They're drawn from the same pool. And in Canada right now, the RCMP, the cops, all right, they'll post for a year or 2 years in a location, but their home is someplace else. So they're like military in that they're perpetually being rotated amongst different provinces so that the public never knows where their family is. That way, they can go out and do the dirty work.
Hang on. I think there's a legitimate need for that where, you don't know where the police officers live, and it's got nothing to do with the police officers being oppressive. It has to do with the fact that people who get arrested for crimes may get into their head that they want some revenge. So that part I don't have a problem with.
Well, you look at your military in this country, and you look at the police up there. The police up there are militarized, and right now I know of about a half a dozen sheriff's deputies in the adjoining county. They're friends. I know where they live. They're easy to find, and nobody bothers them. They arrest people daily, but they're not out oppressing people. When you've got people that move around and wear masks and act like Gestapo stormtroopers, they've got a reason to hide. And that's what's coming to you, and they've already got it in place. Just wait. Just wait for your fellow friends that are local law enforcement being shipped around. You see these cops, they'll kill somebody and they get shipped around and they carry their retirement with them. Why? Because it's all interconnected.
Okay, well, Mike, first of all, we're very lucky here in Hawaii. The cops are very mellow. I have friends who are in the department. We've only had one questionable shooting where a guy was praying on the beach near a marine mammal, and he was shot by a police officer who'd actually just moved here from the mainland. But all of the local Kama'aina police officers, they're very low key, they're very polite. We're very lucky. We're not dealing with that situation. I understand why you don't want the general public to be able to find the homes of police officers. To me, that's just common sense. The militarization is definitely a separate issue. As far as Canada throwing people in prison for wrong opinions, Merkel's trying to get the same laws passed in Germany. It smacks of 1930s Nazis. Here in the United States, we have that First Amendment. And at some point, this war between the corporate media and the independent media is going to result in a test case that will go all the way to the Supreme Court to say that, yes, the First Amendment is a right that is granted to the individual, not just to the corporate media. And again, the uphill battle for the corporate media is their track record. Saddam's weapons of mass destruction, Pearl Harbor, a surprise, human-caused global warming. Hillary Clinton is going to win in a landslide. So they can't come from a position of their being more accurate and objective and honest than the independent media because history is very much against them. The entire approach is we're the corporate media, we're protected by the First Amendment, and we don't think the First Amendment should apply to ordinary citizens, which is the same argument they've been trying to do with the Second Amendment, but the Supreme Court ruled the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms is an individual right, just like every other right in the Bill of Rights. And they're not going to change that for the First Amendment. So this is going to result in a test case, and it's going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. But, hey, if George Carlin could win, so can we.
Michael, they did a COINTELPRO against you just like me. The difference is I went to prison, you didn't. I talked to a lot of people in prison. They don't hold the cop accountable because most of these guys were doing something wrong. They don't have a problem with a cop doing his job. They're not going to go hunt him down. What you're going to deal with is these cops that are going to do things that are not so good, and they got to get them moved around so that nobody knows where they're at.
Well, you're not going to convince me that we should publicize the address of ordinary police officers, and so we're just going to have to agree to disagree. Thank you very much. We're going to let you go here. I got a few more stories here. We're running out of time to the top of the hour. We have been talking about hate crime hoaxes and all the frauds that are being carried on out. They're reported as factual by the corporate media. There was that professor out at Claremont College in California claimed that the anti-Semites were painting swastikas on her car. The corporate media reported it without question. Then it came on out she'd done it to herself. Same thing with the student at Georgetown University. Oh, they're painting swastikas on my door. Then a security camera caught her doing it herself. We were talking last week about a new website that's out there, hatecrimehoaxes.com, that catalogs all of these. And you come away from this realizing that most of these hate crimes are frauds. They're deceptions for political gain. And so that brings us to a story that's over in the Daily Mail in Great Britain. The story is coming out of Denton, Texas, where David and Jenny Williams supposedly woke up to find their truck and their motorcycle on fire, and the quote, N-word lovers sprawled across their garage door in spray paint. This happened back on December 12th. And it was declared a hate crime. It got a lot of coverage in the local press, launching an arson investigation. And, of course, well-wishers donated huge amounts of money to the family to help buy a new car, new motorcycle, repair the damage and everything like this. Apparently, last week, the wife blew the whistle saying the husband had started the fires and spray painted N-word lovers on the garage door. It was a hoax. It was another hoax. If you want your 15 minutes of media fame, if you want people to just send you all kinds of money, just fake a hate crime. Oh, feel sorry for me, I'm the victim of a hate crime. And most of them turn out to be hoaxes. Most of them turn out to be frauds. And some can cause a lot of damage. The Tawana Brawley rape hoax ruined careers. During the heyday of the 1990s militant feminism, up in Davis, California, there was a woman who claimed that she had been gang raped by teenagers on skateboards right on the divider of the highway going through the middle of town. And the National Organization of Women showed up and made a big deal about it. Oh, say it's proof of the rape epidemic, and, you know, men are all rapists and that's all they are and so forth. And the Davis City Council was on the verge of passing a males-only curfew when the police finally came on out and said, there's something funny about this story. We can't find the doctor she claims she went to after being raped. We can't find any physical evidence supporting it. And finally she said, yeah, I made it up. Back in the 1990s, if you wanted a guest shot on Donahue or Oprah, you just had to come up with a fantastic rape story and you were guaranteed your 15 minutes of fame. And so we have to be very skeptical when these newsworthy, spectacular crimes take place, how many of them turn out to be frauds. Now, getting on to vaccines and autism, I posted a story. This came out of Scribd.com. It's a document. It's a collection of 128 research papers showing that there is a link between vaccines and autism. And by the way, I've been informed that Facebook is now blocking me for articles like this. People trying to view the article are being given a message saying somebody has complained that this is fake news. They don't want you knowing about the vaccines. Another story coming out of Investment Watchblog. Remember, last year in California, they passed Senate Bill 277, signed by Governor Jerry Brown, which removed religious and personal exemptions from the mandatory vaccine schedule. If your kids are going to go into the public schools, you have to get these 38 vaccinations. In the 1 year since this bill went into effect, autism rates have risen among California school children 17%. Now, at the rate autism is growing now, by 2030, half of all children will be diagnosed as autistic. That means half of all Americans will be unusable in the workforce, and a significant part of the available workforce will be tied up with caring for the autistic people. It's big business, caring for autistic people. Now, here's a story that really tells you what's going on. Apparently, over in Germany, there's a big stink because it came on out that in their vaccine program, people in the government get different vaccines than ordinary people in the street. In this case, they're talking about the swine flu vaccine and how government officials in Berlin are getting a version of the vaccine that's seen as safer, less harmful, but it costs more. But they're going to get the safe vaccine, and you hoi polloi out there, you're going to get the one that might actually melt your brain. So just like there's a two-tier justice system, there's a two-tier medical system. And by the way, that was a hallmark of the former Soviet Union. The members of the Kremlin and the Politburo, they had special private hospitals that had access to the very best medicine, and the medical system for the ordinary people, mostly placebos actually, was a two-tiered system. I wonder if we have that exact same thing here. Now then, we mentioned this earlier in a phone call, but I'm going to mention it again. This is coming out of Blacklisted News. Obama is yanking Cyber Command control from the National Security Agency and basically is going to be handing it over to somebody else somewhere in the Pentagon. The goal is to prevent Cybercom from being run by the same military officer who oversees the NSA. And maybe this is Obama expressing his displeasure that NSA was not able to come up with manufactured proof that Russia was hacking the election and the DNC emails. Now then, story coming on out of Russia today. A former Olympic gymnastics doctor has been arrested and is facing federal charges on 2 counts of possession of child pornography after FBI investigators found at least 37,000 images and videos of child pornography in his garbage. That was the stuff he was throwing out. Who knows what he still kept. Some of this material included girls under the age of 12. The man's name is Larry Nasser. He was the U.S. gym team physician during 4 Olympic Games, and he worked as a doctor at Michigan State University before he got fired. Now, question. We already know there's a strong correlation between prescription antidepressants and violence. I think it's time that we study the correlation between prescription antidepressants and other what might be considered aberrant behavior, because we know prescription antidepressants suppress impulse control, and people might just be tempted to go do all kinds of weird things they otherwise would not. As embarrassing as this Olympic doctor is concerned, it had to be worse for the president of Bolivia, because he was in a court setting. Evo Morales was trying to show stuff on his phone, and apparently he'd left a porn video hung in the background, and it started playing, filling the courtroom with sounds of a woman in the throes of ecstasy. And in fumbling his phone to try and shut it off, he actually dropped it on the ground, and he had to leap out of his seat. Guys, you know, have it on a separate flash drive or something like that. It's amazing. But again, I think we need to look at the prescription antidepressants. We know they cause violence. We know there's a correlation between the rise of the use of these and the rise of various forms of violence, not just murders and mass shootings. Domestic violence is up. Police brutality is up. I think it's time to take a very good look at how we may be drugging ourselves insane as a society. So we're going to take a break for commercials, back with the last segment of our program after these few words. Hi, America. Welcome back to the show, and I'm getting an email from a reader who says Google is also now filtering out all the articles regarding that infamous Fox News synthetic bovine growth hormone lawsuit, and basically said the search came up with just one article declaring the story to be completely false and fake. Didn't happen. Monsanto's great. You've got to love these people. As of right now, I'm off of Google. I'm going to go with the Yandex from now on. And I suggest you all do the same. If Google and Facebook want to be just like the filtered corporate media outlets, then let's give them the same audience they have. Now then, a little bit of news for all of you science buffs or those of you living here either on or around the Pacific. Up in the Aleutian Islands, Bogoslav volcano has been erupting repeatedly over the last several days. Earlier today, the condition was set to red. It's been pulled back to orange. But the island has gone through some major changes. The ash plumes are posing a problem to aviation. They're having to issue alerts for people to stay away from the ash cloud, because the ash cloud, if you fly a plane through it, can cause a great deal of damage. And so they're keeping an eye on it. Now, for us here in Hawaii, the issue has to do with these outflows of lava that will form new additions to the island, because it may look like it's an island, but what you don't understand is when the lava hits the water and solidifies, there may be nothing underneath it to support it. It's called a lava bench. We get them on the Big Island all the time, and when they get too heavy to be supported from the edge, they'll collapse into the water. And some of these lava benches up at this island are looking very large, according to the latest satellite pictures. If one of them were to collapse, we might see a tsunami warning come out of that. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that situation here. And hopefully it'll all calm on down. But, boy, there's been a lot of seismic activity around the planet lately. Maybe the Earth is getting ready to hatch, and Cthulhu's going to come on out and say, all right, all of you, get off. Sick and tired of all of you. And big earthquake in Chile, the ones down there in the Solomons and New Guinea. And the Solomon New Guinea quakes are on opposite ends of the same fault line. If that center section were to unzip, that would be a major problem as well. So the Earth is definitely moving around, especially that Pacific Ocean plate going all the way back to Fukushima. The government is now of Japan is now acknowledging that much of what has been reported about Fukushima over the last several years was a bunch of nonsense, that the original numbers about radiation release were actually correct, and there's no taking it back. They can't do a thing about it. Anyway, there's the music. Time for me to get out of here and do Jim Goddard's show up in Vancouver. We'll be back tomorrow, Wednesday, here at the Republic Broadcasting Network. Until then, stay informed, stay skeptical. Remember, you are now part of the independent media. Share what you know with everyone that you know. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.